So Newton's first law says that an object in motion stays in motion and an object at rest stays at rest unless acted upon by another force. So basically that means that if an object is in motion with a constant velocity and no acceleration, or like an acceleration of 0, then the object is going to stay in motion with that constant velocity unless another force is added to it. For example, if a negative force is added and it like pushes against the object, or if a positive force is added and it pushes the object in the direction it's already going, or something like friction could slow down the object from the ground. And an object at rest has no velocity and no acceleration, and the object's gonna stay that way unless another force is added to it that would cause it to be in motion. So this is my example. Obviously the object in motion is the ball, and the force acting against it is the dog, and the ball would continue to be in motion, but the dog, by the dog grabbing it, he is acting as a force against it, and I guess you could say he's either adding a negative velocity by pushing in the opposite direction, or just pushing down on it, completely stopping it. But even if the dog didn't grab the ball, then there would also be the force of friction acting on the ball, and that would cause it to decelerate anyways. So Newton's second law says that acceleration happens when a force is acted on a mass. So that means when an object with mass has a force applied to it, whether it's someone kicking or throwing a ball, for example, then the object will accelerate. And that also means that when the mass is greater, the force that is acted on it has to also be greater. And if you threw one object with a greater mass at a certain force, and then an object with a lesser mass with the same force, then the object with the less mass will go further because it will accelerate more. So my example for this was throwing a lacrosse ball and then throwing a basketball. The force is me throwing the ball, and then the mass is either the lacrosse ball or the basketball. And the lacrosse ball goes further because I'm using the same force for both objects, but the force has to act on less mass with the lacrosse ball, so that means that it will accelerate more than the basketball would, because acceleration is force over mass. So if the mass is less for the lacrosse ball, then the acceleration would be greater because you have to divide the force by less. So Newton's third law says that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So that means that every force that's acted upon an object has a reaction force that is the same magnitude but in the opposite direction. So my example for this is a video from Swim, and when you push off of the wall into the water, your action is pushing into the water, and the equal and opposite reaction is the force of the water pushing back on you as you dive.